Hey, good morning, folks. Pastor Stephen back again with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic is death and taxes. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that adage, but it goes something like this. There are only two guarantees in life: death and taxes. Now, I'm not going to be talking about death and taxes so much today, but it's this idea that suffering is inevitable. Okay, that's what Peter is trying to communicate to us. That's what he was trying to communicate to the first century believers. He wasn't trying to trick them into being followers of Jesus, right? He wasn't trying to go, hey, you should follow Jesus because it's going to make you rich and life is going to be good and you're never going to be sick and people are going to love you. Actually, the opposite is true. You're going to have to give most of your money away. You're going to, chances are people are going to throw you in prison. You might get beaten and you might eventually die. Okay. And it's this idea that suffering is inevitable, but we got to make sure that the suffering that we endure is for the right reasons. All right. And I'm going to take you to the text right away. Today, I'm going to be reading again in First Peter, and I'm going to backtrack today into chapter 2, and I'm just going to read verses 19 through 20. And I want you to listen to Peter's words because he's trying to be honest and upfront about what the Jesus life is going to look like for these followers of Jesus, right? And so he says this: for it is commendable, okay, that's a good thing, if a man bears up under the pain of unjust suffering because he's conscious of God. Okay, it's a good thing if you deal with pain and suffering because of your knowledge or your understanding of who God is. Okay, that's what Peter's trying to say there in verse 19. But how's it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? Okay, right? Like, you're going to suffer for doing wrong. I mean, that's not a good thing, right? Okay. But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. See, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I think a lot of times we try to use Jesus as this get out of suffering free kind of card, right? Where if I follow Jesus, my life is going to be good. There's not going to be anything bad that happens to me, right? And Jesus is not a get out of suffering free card. In fact, what Peter is arguing is he's almost a backstage pass into it, right? Because that's what is in store for these first century believers. When you become a follower of Christ, things are going to be rough for you. But the reality is, even if you aren't a follower of Christ, things are going to be rough for you, right? Suffering is inevitable, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, because being a follower of Jesus doesn't make you immune to suffering. Jesus was telling his disciples in John 16:33, again, a passage of scripture where it's kind of his last words, his wisdom, and he's trying to unfold it before the disciples before he goes to the cross. And he says, in this world, you are gonna have trouble. It's a guarantee. Things aren't gonna be just peachy. But he doesn't leave them there. Take heart, because I have overcome the world. And so suffering is inevitable. Being a follower of Jesus doesn't make you immune. So what does it do for me then, Stephen, right? If being a follower of Jesus doesn't make me immune to suffering, well then why follow Jesus? That's a great question. It's because being a follower of Jesus changes, think about it like infrastructure. Okay, it transforms our infrastructure. It allows us to withstand, okay, what we experience, right? Being a follower of Jesus doesn't change what you experience in life, okay? You're still going to have bad experiences and good experiences. It doesn't change that. What it does is it changes changes you, and it allows you to withstand what you experience in life. Think about in a country like Hong Kong, okay, where they have lots and lots of earthquakes. Now, buildings in Hong Kong, okay, on the outside look the same as buildings around the rest of the world. But what's different is the infrastructure that's within those buildings is far different because they are built to withstand earthquakes, not just, little tiny earthquakes, but huge, massive earthquakes. And that's what being a follower of Jesus does, okay? On the outside, my life is going to look pretty much the same, but it's what changes on the inside of me that counts, and it allows me to withstand. I'm still going to have bad experiences. I'm still going to have flat tires. I'm still going to have death. I'm still going to have illness. I'm still going to pay taxes, right? But it changes what I can withstand as a follower of Jesus. And so it changes our infrastructure and it changes our operating system, right? Being a follower of Jesus doesn't change what you experience, but it changes how you can respond. Maybe that's a good way of thinking. It changes how you can respond to what you experience. And Paul actually talks about that in a book called First Thessalonians. And I'm going to take you there, actually. It's First Thessalonians 4:13. And Paul's kind of doing the same thing that Peter's doing here, okay? He doesn't want people to be tricked into believing the gospel, okay? It's not all going to be rainbows and unicorns, folks, okay? And so Paul tells the believers this. He says, brothers, this is First Thessalonians 4:13, brothers, we do not want you to be ignorant, okay, about those who die, okay? Paul's talking the same way Peter is talking here. I don't want you to be duped into this. I don't want you to be ignorant. People die, okay? People die. That's what Paul is saying. It's a guarantee, right? Suffering is inevitable. But I don't want you to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. And what Paul is trying to say here is that being a follower of Jesus, it doesn't change what you experience, okay? It changes how you can respond to what you experience in your life, okay? How you can respond is the big piece of the puzzle, because then Peter's going to play off of that and talk about how we have this hope. And that's where our life is going to start to raise interesting questions when people see us experience bad things, yet stay hopeful. And that's going to get them asking questions like, why do you have all this hope? And that opens the doorway for an opportunity to say, hey, let's have a conversation about Jesus today, right? And so suffering is inevitable, but make sure it's for the right reasons. Following Jesus isn't a ticket out of suffering, okay? It's a backstage pass into it, but it changes what you and I can withstand, and it changes how you and I can respond to it. Hey, you guys, have an awesome, awesome day and be blessed.